Yeah, I mean, my interest in it was really a couple of key things. The first was the relationship between the father and his children. I'm a father myself, I sort of related to it quite a lot, found it very powerful. And I like the idea of combining that with this story that speculates about a potential moment in human evolution where mankind would have to reckon with its place in the wider universe. I grew up in an era that was really a golden age of blockbusters, films by people like Steven Spielberg. If you look at Close Encounters and the way that addressed that idea of this sort of inevitable moment where humans would meet aliens and addressed it from a family perspective and a very relatable human perspective. I really like the idea of trying to give today's audiences some sense of that form of storytelling. Well, obviously, the success of Alfonso's movie is very encouraging from the point of view of working in science fiction. We'll see how we do. I mean, the thing you hope for doing an original project that isn't a sequel, isn't a franchise, that kind of thing, isn't based on something from another medium. The hope is if it succeeds, that it encourages that type of filmmaking within the studio system. It's what we try to do with Inception. It'd be nice for it to work with this as well. But we'll wait and see. Well, Hoyt's Dutch, man. You can't claim him. He lives in Sweden. He lives in Sweden.
He's not Swedish now. We always try to claim him.
Well, you're right to try and claim him. And he lives in Sweden and has a lovely Swedish family. And he's really extraordinary. One of the things he was able to do for me that I absolutely loved is achieve a degree of spontaneity and simplicity in the way he shot the film that you rarely see on such a huge film, particularly in this genre. I mean, for somebody to be sort of, grubbing around in a spaceship, grabbing things documentary style and whatever, it was really, really phenomenal. And his command of the IMAX medium, which is extremely challenging technically, was extraordinary. I mean, there are handheld, intimate scenes shot with these enormous cameras. I don't know how he did it. He just put handles on the thing and picked it up. I think these Dutch guys are pretty strong, it turns out. Working with him was a joy. So, as I say, you're right to claim him. No, I mean, for me, the great thing about movies has always been the large screen, large audience experience. That's what you always hope for. One of my earliest movie-going memories was going to Leicester Square to see 2001 when I was 7 years old, and I've never forgotten the scale of that experience. I saw my first IMAX film when I was 15 and immediately wanted to make features that way at that point. So really for me, working on this scale and that medium, it's just a long-held dream of mine. Well, I mean, in the case of Interstellar, it's most obviously that way because of Kip's involvement, as Michael was pointing out. Kip's long-held dream for the movie was always to do a science fiction film that was based on the possibilities offered by real science. I enjoyed working that way because it wasn't a set of rules imposed upon the storytelling. It was really about a set of possibilities. It was really about sitting with Kip and saying, what can real-world science offer us as narrative directions? And the things that he was able to open up for me were far more exotic and surprising than anything I could have come up with just, as a screenwriter. Yeah, I mean, the way I approached this score, I've done several films with Hans and really enjoyed that process. And we try and, change the collaboration, change the way we work every time. In the case of this, what we did is I called him up and I said, I'd like you to give me a day of your time. And this is before I'd started writing on the script. He had no idea what the genre was going to be of the film. He had no idea anything about it, except I gave him a letter with one page, and it described the sort of fable at the heart of the film. It had a little bit of the dialogue. It was really about the relationship between a father and his child. And I said, okay, work on that for a day, and at the end of the day, you've got to play me what you've done, and that will be the score of the film. And that's what he did. And then we took the tune he wrote at the end of the day, which I thought perfectly captured the feelings at the heart of the film. And then over the next 2 years, we built that out into what the final score is. But I'm very pleased with his work, and I think working in that way, we were able to achieve a very close relationship between music and image. I mean, there are so many influences on the film. I mean, you point to to one of them in particular, 2001. It was an obvious influence on the film, but a huge inspiration for the film. There are quite a few others. I mean, the key one in a technical sense, I think, and in terms of the spirit of it, is Philip Kaufman's The Right Stuff, which I think is an extraordinary film. We screened a print of it to the crew before we started the film, as we were discussing our methodology and how we did certain things. And then actually Hoyte, my DP, introduced me to Tarkovsky's Mirror, which I think had a big influence on the sort of elemental things in the story to do with wind and dust and water and so forth. So there are a lot of different things sort of rattling around in there. And as for my favorite character in a science fiction film, I mean, it's got to be Darth Vader, doesn't it? It's like, well, I think it is a reassuring sentiment. I mean, the film is optimistic in that sense, in that it's really saying that mankind exists independent of its particular situation. As far as it being a call to arms, I mean, no, specifically in the text of the film, you know, it has a jumping off point saying we're not meant to save the earth, we're meant to leave it, which obviously if that's taken literally as to how we should be addressing this issue now, it would not be a particularly positive approach or viewpoint. Really, the film is fiction as a story. It feeds off certain of our worries and concerns that I think are very valid in the world today, but really it's about saying that what is mankind's place in the universe? Can we exist off this earth? I think it's a very exciting thing to deal with. Dramatically, I felt it was important that we have to deal with that out of necessity, but I think in real life it would be far better if we dealt with that issue out of choice. Well, I think anytime you're reminded of how difficult this is, you know, it brings people's attention to it. But particularly when you're looking at astronauts and what they face and who they are, and every time, you know, a rocket blows up or something like that, you know, we're reminded of the incredible bravery of these people and the extraordinary nature of this endeavor, which requires resources from the entire world sort of put together. I mean, one of the things that I absolutely love about space exploration is it does represent the highest ambition of our collective endeavor to actually do something that difficult and get out into the universe and off this planet. I think it's an extraordinary thing, and I think people are constantly being reminded of that. Well, for me, you know, I had the advantage of coming to my brother's script that he'd been working on for several years, and one of the things I really loved about it was the character of Brand that Anne plays in the film. I thought it was just a wonderful role, and I went to Anne with it because I knew she was very interested in science and would completely get this character and everything this character is about. When it comes to Murph, in his draft, Murph was originally a boy, and maybe because my oldest child is a girl, I decided to change Murph to a girl, and I found that very naturally to me, you know, trying to write that relationship between a father and his daughter, it was something I really enjoyed, and then enjoyed extrapolating that out to the rest of the story. But really, for me, as a writer, I try to be simple and really just lay the story down, because for me, the screenplay is just a working document, and then you bring the actors in, and you're trusting them and hoping for them to really flesh these characters out and bring a sense of truth to them. But the idea really, I mean, one of the things that working on this film really brought home to me is the idea of scale. It's the idea of perspective, of how small we are on our little planet compared with what we already know about the vast universe around us, and then what we can speculate is even beyond that. So I think to try and make any kind of determination along the lines of probable, certain, it's very difficult. I mean, we really are speculating at that point. So then you're down to, well, what's an entertaining speculation? And we've tried to fill this film with entertaining speculations.